We made it, everyone. Thank you for joining all of you warriors out there. This is your Friday follow. End of week. A lot has happened this week regarding human trafficking, slavery, and all else in America. So let's get to it. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Please make sure, I got to tell you this, subscribe. I had two warriors contact me this morning saying, what happened? Please make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We're still on our way to that super highway on YouTube. We're almost there to hit that 10,000 mark subscribers to get into that new lane that will really circulate our videos far and wide. Let's see who's here. Check in with me, please. 5x5. Edie's here. Thank you, Edie. Edie's always our biggest warriors cheerleader, reminding everybody to hit the like button, thumbs up button on the way in, the way out, whatever you do. Hit it. Thanks, Edie. Because you know what? I always forget to actually ask that of everybody. Can you believe it's January 31st, end of the month already? Time is flying by. Let's see. We have a Gracie Loves George. We have Papa Kilo 2. Everybody's saying hello to each other. Lionel Nation 5x5. Good afternoon. My better halves, who says support the Warriors. Indeed. Now, let's go through. We have a lot to cover, which is why I wanted to do it end of the month. So much has happened. My head is almost spinning, and my head doesn't really spin, everybody. I'm going to start with something, that horrible, horrible, awful crash that occurred in Washington, D.C. With the airplane and the helicopter, which we all know about it. I don't have to go through the facts. I want to point this out because I've had a lot of parents and grandparents contact me. How do we talk to the kids about this? You simply have to acknowledge it. You can't ignore it. You can't frighten them. You simply have to say, yes, is it, age appropriate, whatever the age is, not too much information. Remember, they're seeing things anyway on their phones, any of their, laptops, devices, hearing from other kids, hearing adults talk about it. Acknowledge it. Acknowledge they're in a safe space with you, and acknowledge, yes, it is horrible and awful, especially since we know, and a lot of the details are a little murky in my opinion, and we'll leave it at that. But there were the figure skaters, there were teens on there were children on there. We don't really have a full picture yet, but that's scary for kids. And it's really, God bless all those people. What a horrific, almost landing to happen. A lot of questions with that one. And remember, I want to also talk about something as we end human trafficking Awareness and Prevention Month, which is January. We always say at the Warriors that every day, every week, every month, every year, every moment has to be human trafficking awareness and prevention, everything. Now, remember, we're calling it slavery. I will keep reminding everybody it is a much more descriptive word. It actually is what it is. It is human enslavement. Can you imagine we have to talk about this in 2025? And it's not really welcome to talk. But I want to say, I was thinking about something, and I'm very realistic about speeches I give and things I say, facts, truths, reality. We are not, now listen to me, we are not going to stop human trafficking, slavery. We're just not. It is too big. It makes too much money, and too many are complicit. But our goal at the Warriors is, if we help one person, one child a day, we're getting together right now because our hashtag is Community Creates Change. I don't care if I have one person that joins this live, or if I have 1 million people that join the live. If we effect change with one person a day, with some information, communication, you know what? We've done our jobs. And that is the only way I can look at doing all of this work and advocacy and keep going and become empowered by your presence. Because so many great things actually happened in addition to that sad crash. I don't like to use the word great when that happened, but I do want to fill you in that, promises made, promises kept. Listen, if a Democrat does good work, I'm going to talk about it. If a Republican does good work, I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about President Trump signed his first piece of legislation this week, and he put into law the Laken-Riley Act. And if you recall, Laken Riley was the 22-year-old nursing student, right, in Georgia, who was brutally assaulted. I'm not going to go through because of the algorithms here. I refuse to be somewhat censored. So I'll just say, you know the story. And you know the story with Rachel Morin, and you know the story with a lot of these girls and women, young women, and others. And this piece of legislation will hold illegal aliens who have invaded our country, broken into our country, allowed to come here and just pilfer and steal and rape and rob and whatever they're doing. And now it is stopping. And this will hold them accountable. They will be held to accountability in the United States. And the piece of legislation added something recently. There was a slight modification, which I'm all for, which says if you attack a police officer, anybody in law enforcement, in any way, shape, or form, you will also be held responsible. I mean, this is music to our ears, right, everybody? So that's good. The other piece of information that is very good is that Senators Rick Scott and Ron Johnson introduced, now it's at its infancy, but it's a good piece of legislation because, I mean, after all, and I follow the thread here, the Biden-Harris administration and those around them, well, I guess that's the administration, they actually admit to losing hundreds of thousands of these unaccompanied minors from their open borders. They lost them. They can't find them. They're unaccounted for. How dare they? In my warrior's opinion, this is the biggest human trafficking operation propelled by the Biden-Harris administration with the open borders in the entire world, and it was allowed to go on, right? Border Patrol was not allowed to do their jobs. Any law enforcement was not allowed to do their jobs. If you followed Governor Abbott in Texas, he remained steadfast, doing all of his own work to enforce laws and to also keep people out that don't belong here. Remember, we want people to come here the correct way, the legal way, to assimilate into our country. We welcome everybody because the immigration attorneys we know and work with, they're people very angry, working 7, 8, 9 years to become an American and then watching all of this go down. So we want to applaud Senators Rick Scott and Ron Johnson, who introduced a piece of legislation, again in its infancy, to stop the human trafficking of migrant children. That is the name of the bill. And that is because, and I've been talking about it for 4 years, and people didn't want to hear about it, I would constantly say, what about the 96 or thereabouts NGOs working on the border, making hundreds of millions of dollars from our hard-earned tax, our hard-earned money, our tax-paying dollars? Where's the vetting of them? Where's the transparency? Can the public see the reports? Why am I hearing from my sources that, a van will come and pick up 10, 20 kids? Oh, that same man will return a few days later, pick up another 10, 20 kids. Oh, here comes that woman in a truck. She'll pick up 50 kids. Excuse me, where are those kids going? We never had a clear story. We never had transparency. We had no accountability of funds. And those NGOs must now show us. So this is going to prove with this new piece of legislation that they have to come clean and they have to show us everything. So much criminality happened. You know it. I know it. And now, you know what? Feet are being held to the fire. It is the most incredible thing. Think about this. What everybody has gone through, including innocent children. I don't care. They're unaccompanied minors from other countries, that the Biden-Harris administration would allow children to be abused like this. We know we have in excess of 500,000, everybody, unaccompanied minors. Call them what you want. They're children, right? Children cannot consent. We know a lot of them are working in very dangerous jobs all over the United States, in all 50 states. And I have full confidence that this is all going to be rooted out. Children will be taken care of in one way, shape, or form. I put myself, the Warrior supports Tom Homan and his team. I'm also hoping to have, I don't want to speak a little too soon, Tom is very busy right now, as you all know, but I hope to have Tom on the Warriors channel right here in the very near future. But I also was hosting a radio show last year with my colleague Brian McLean, and I urge all of you go back. I just spoke to him the other day here in the Warriors. Look at our chit chat we did together. Now, Brian and I hosted a show called State of the Nation, and Brian actually traveled to the border. And I was hosting the show from here. He was on the border. He lives in Texas, by the way. He could not make any headway. Everybody chased him off. He was not allowed to take pictures. He went up to a lot of the NGOs right along the border. They were covered in black tarps all along the fences. They were horrible. He went into the towns along the border. He traveled. He was around the McAllen, El Paso. He did some traveling there. Tried to talk to locals. Tried to talk to churches. Couldn't get anywhere. And if you can't get now, many of you may not be familiar with Brian, but I attest to the fact if you can't talk to friendly Brian McLean, like there's something going on where everybody was afraid to speak out. And I don't blame people if you're a resident there. Who knows what they do to you if you do start to speak out. But I want to know why vans and trucks were allowed to pick up kids. That tells me, I don't have proof yet, but I'm sure I'm 99.99% right, that a lot of illegal activities were going on there. And I wanted accountability. And it's not always, you hear a lot, Catholic charities. Yes, they were there. There were Jewish organizations, Muslim organizations, all kinds of religions were there. It was not only Catholic charities. So let's get our facts and our information straight with all of that. But I have full confidence the Trump administration, they're going to get to the bottom of this. I mean, it's the end of week 2. I'm still in disbelief that all of these positive actions are going forward. Laureen has joined us, and we have Sid joining us. Come on, everybody, ask some questions. Now, what does everybody know about, did you know this is school choice week? Does anybody know this? It is very imperative. The Warriors, the work we do is, yes, it is working on ending human slavery, intervention, prevention, education, but it's also working on policy to strengthen kids, strengthen families, so vulnerable kids don't fall into this trafficking, this enslavement so easily. So it's very shocking, school choice week. Does everybody, who knows what that means? There's a little lag here, but go ahead, weigh in. I'd like to hear from some of you. Do you know what school choice week means? Okay, weigh in, which we are great believers in. Look, if you're paying your taxes, you should be able to pick your school, whether it's private, whether it's charter, whether it's homeschooling, public, whatever it is, your funds that you pay your taxes, you should be able for your children to pick where they go to school. Now, this looks like a shy group here because I don't see a lot of questions going on, but don't be so shy. I want to say that the stats are frightening, which we've known coming out. 8th graders, about 40% are proficient in reading. About 28% are proficient in math. Now, that's just unacceptable. It's probably around, I would have thought the reading actually was lower because I did see something about a week ago, a study that was saying around 33%, but we'll stick with what they're putting out there this week. But it's really something that I believe we should all have, the choice to pick where we want our children to go to school. So that being said, we got to keep an eye on all of that because the education system, but this is where you have to get involved, right? You have to become the class parent. You have to I know everybody works, overwhelmed, has a lot going on, but you have to at least talk to your child and know what their curriculum is. You have every right to go to the school, ask for what is the curriculum. Be part of the board. Just be a face, be involved. And that being said, and it's coming out right now, we have maintained phone-free schools. And that is, you can't do a law about that. I mean, I guess you could, but Right now, there's nothing like that. And frankly, I don't think we really want a law about that. It goes school by school, perhaps, state by state, um, kind of, or maybe school district by school district. And it's happening across the United States in a lot of areas very successfully. Keep the phones out of the classrooms. Now, that being said, right? And you can go to linswarriors.org, our website, and you can go under where we have the take actions, and there's a sample how you would approach your child's school. Bring some other parents with you, or remember what I always tell you, families today in the United States, not always the traditional mom, dad, lots of single parents, lots of grandparents raising kids these days, and lots of older siblings raising kids. So the family unit, whoever's raising, who's ever providing, get a few of them to come with you to the school, even if it's one or two other, power in numbers. I'm always telling you that. And present this to the school if your school's not already doing it. It is being done in New Jersey in Paramus. So that's one just in the high school, very successfully, and across our country. But the point of this is, Kathy Hochul came out, governor of New York, my state, my home state, with, we're going to get those phones out of the classrooms. I mean, she's hanging on to anything, this woman, throwing anything out there lately, including, and I digress here, everybody, that she had 2 very successful phone calls with President Trump. Of course she did, because we have congestion pricing, taxing when you take your car out of the garage. You got to pay to drive on the streets. That's for another program, though. I'll leave that for my husband, Lionel, to talk about. But so, of course, she had successful phone calls as he weighs down on most likely doing away with that. But let me tell you about these schools. I do a lot of policy work. I went through her brand new January budget. Of course, I won't bore you with that. Loads of pieces of legislation directed at equity, lots of pieces directed at climate. And she allotted $13.2 million for getting the phones out of the schools. And I remember when I saw this the other day in the budget line, that sounds like a lot of money, right? $13.2 million, drop in the bucket. Because I said to my husband, I'm like, to buy those yonder pouches, which are the suggested, it's a very thick kind of pouch, and it locks the phone in, right? There's a little machine in the school, and I've told you about this before. Remember the plastic tags on clothes, so people didn't steal them when you paid for them. You had to get the little plastic security tag removed. It's kind of a little machine, so it's in the pouch, the phone, and then you got to go to the little machine, whether they put them at the doors of the schools or in a hallway, But $13.2 million, those pouches cost like $38 each. $38 each. That breaks down in my head. I'm like, wow, across the entire state? That can't even cover New York City in my head. And indeed, it did come out that 13.2 million would allot, maybe $9 towards a pouch. So basically, let's round up, everybody. So who's supposed to come up with the extra $29, $30 for this pouch when people are overwhelmed financially? That is not, you cannot try that. She's trying to pass this law, right? No phones in the classrooms, but you're not going to pay for it, Kathy Hochul? And you expect parents? Once again, it goes to our point of the burden is put on parents, on kids to come up with that money. Unbelievable. That should not be the case, although we promote phone-free classrooms. And that being said, those yonder pouches are great. Look them up if you don't know about them, because we do want the kids to have access in the world we live in, access to their phones if something happens, right? And being in this pouch locked away, whether we put them in cubbies and have the little clip-off things in the classroom, which makes sense to me that you would really have to, in the event of an emergency, have the little machine right there so kids could quickly undo it. We do want to be in touch with kids. But the studies we have show they are doing better academically. The teachers are able to teach better. We know that 90% of children in schools, and that's basically the ages of 4th grade through high school, 90% plus admit to using their phone during the day, during class, classrooms, we're not talking about the cafeteria. We're not talking about, walking to and from. We're talking when they're actually supposed to be learning. They may have it on their lap. So the teacher's very difficult for the teachers to teach when this is going on. So we've got to wrap our heads around this a little bit. Again, though, it trickles down to you still have to talk to your kids, right? Nobody's going to do it all for you. It's up to us to do this work and talk about it. But at the same time, I'm a little tired of this government coming out with these proclamations. And I'm talking about New York State right now, actually in the last 4 years, but we'll forget about that because that was a bad nightmare, right? Everybody, a bad dream that's being finished, done, enough, being cleaned up. But you can't, if you put out these proclamations that sound good because you have a nice clickbait there. You can go on television and talk about how great it is, but you don't talk about the facts. You don't talk about the cost, leaving it up to a parent, a family member to afford this. Unbelievable. You can't do that. So we need to call out Governor Kathy Hochul and any others for the truth and the reality to all of this. So we've got that going on. I also want to share with you some really great, well, let me just finish the thought. I still wake up every day. Let me just go back to the comments. Edie says, I know what it means, but not aware this was the week. Several of my kids went to a charter school. That's Edie talking. We'll go back to the charter school, the choice week, school choice week, which should be a big deal, right? People should be marching in the streets. Like we should be celebrating this. We should be coming together because millions of people, the one thing during COVID, the dynamic of a school changed tremendously. A lot of children became homeschooled. There are a lot of good programs. I frankly am a believer in, I don't like, now it's easy for me in retrospect, years later. Kids are forced to go to school 6, 7, 8 hours a day, right? And not all kids are cut out for school. In my Warriors kind of fantasy world, I believe that kids would do well with, maybe like 2.5 hours a day of concentrated study, learning. And then, remember, this is my dream world, what I like. And then another couple of hours devoted to, we'll go to a museum, we'll go to a dance class, we will do something artistic, we will read books and make it more interesting, right? Maybe you have a child, a 12-year-old, really not academic. You want them to learn the reading, writing and arithmetic, and the writing. We got to get back to some penmanship, everybody. But then you want to fill them, you want them to become passionate. So they want to learn, right? They may want to, be involved in automotive or something like that. They may want to be, I don't know, building furniture. We have to cater to the kids and not have this one size fits all. So I'm glad in the last few years, things have opened up. Lots more homeschooling, many more programs. We have alternative high schools now in New York. Some fantastic, a friend of mine was telling me about when her son was touring different schools, film schools. So yes, you have your core academics for a few hours in the morning. The afternoon is spent working on film, working on coding, fantastic, right? We all want that. Let's see. Fred says, who's going to tie the undermining financial hands of all these so-called helpful NGOs accepting plethora of money under false deceptive presence? Fred, that's a loaded question, but the Trump administration is going to get to the bottom of all of this. I feel very assured that that is going to happen. And I say this because, remember I said Senators Rick Scott and Ron Johnson just presented this brand new piece of legislation, illegal, well, I'll call them migrant children, okay? They're children. Remember, they can't consent. Migrant children will not be sex trafficked, will not be labor trafficked. This is the bill. In addition, this bill calls for full accounting, transparency of every NGO, anybody who received 1 penny on that border. You are going to report, and we are going to present it to the American people. So it's in the works, my friend, in the works. Okay, Teresa Skinner, thank you. Thank you for your donation. This is end of month, and we had, let me tell you what we did on Tuesday. let me just go back. Fred, what can I do to facilitate these efforts? If you're talking about what I just told you about, Fred, um, you can always follow the warriors. And when I put out as the legislation moves along, um, and I say I need everyone to do a take action and add your name and zip code so we have representation from around the country, like that's how you can help. If that's what you're talking about, I think it is. I believe under the Trump administration, there's going to be a full accounting. They're going to hold people responsible. I'm not a betting woman, but if I was, I'd bet on this. It's only week 2. Stay tuned is what I have to say. There are a lot of things percolating and being done behind the scenes that'll come forth in the next few weeks. I want to also say that, so Teresa just donated $2. All of our monies, we did a fantastic, we were part of a teen safety summit this past Tuesday at Rockland Community College, which is here in New York. And you know what? I almost could cry when I talk about it. There's a wonderful group that we work with, we partner with, called the Wonder Girls. And the Wonder Girls started around the same time as the Warriors. So officially 2020, both as nonprofits. And I met Natalie Maniscalco and the other co-founder, Irene Zervudis, of the Wonder Girls, because it was in my mind as I started the Warriors. Remember, we were in that COVID period. I know I don't like to say that word, but I did. Okay, at the same time, I'm seeing everything's happening with our kids, right? The ages are getting younger. You can't start awareness, education, anything when kids are 15, 16, 17. Really too late. You got to get in there. Well, now I'll say to you, when they're born practically, age appropriate on different things. We'll leave that for a minute. And I'm like, we have to get into 5th, 6th grade girls and then through high school. And then all of a sudden, I was introduced to the Wonder Girls, same time as the Warriors. And so now we collaborate. And Tuesday was their Teen Safety Summit. They dedicate their month of January. Remember, it's Human Trafficking Awareness and Prevention Month, to their teen safety campaign and also to awareness about trafficking. They do such a wonderful job. They are in schools in New York, New Jersey, just starting in Connecticut. The schools have to sign up, right? And we put on this summit. And if I say how it warmed my heart to attend this and see 300 girls ages 12 to 17 come together, right? Community creates change, empowering each other, engaging each other. And we had breakout sessions. I brought with me, and I'm going to say it, God bless them, the New York DEA, Drug Enforcement Administration, Frank Tarantino, who runs the New York division. And I have to say that was the morning of the raid, the beginning of raids here in New York City, up in the Bronx. I woke up at 4:00. I had a press release already that this was going on. I didn't have a press release. Somebody sent me, this is happening. And I'm like, oh, I don't think Frank's going to be able to go, Rockland Community College today and talk with the girls. And you know what? Frank showed up at 10 o'clock in the morning and kicked off our Teen Safety Summit along with his associate Sierra, who does community outreach. Let me tell you, we want the DEA. They have a wonderful new program. They're really getting into the communities, which is what we at the Warriors do. One-on-one kind of thing, very grassroots. That's what we at the Warriors do, to talk about fentanyl, to talk about you are worth it. You don't need this. And this is what the Wonder Girls, again, it's empowerment. And teen dating, what's appropriate, what's not. A 12, 13, 14-year-old girl, they don't know what's appropriate, right? And they get talked into a lot of things. That's where a lot of horrible things happen. That's where a lot of trafficking happens. And also the fentanyl. And you all know, I don't have to go through it. Leading cause of death, 18 to 45. That's not even right, because the ages we know are getting younger and younger. That's the last study and stats put out. So we empower them. And to see Frank talk to them and say, you are worth it. I'm a dad. I have 2 daughters. And to see his colleague Sierra there, a doll, wonderful, setting up a table, giving out, reading material. We have bracelets, we have pizzas, and also sponsored by Goya Foods. God bless Goya Foods. Everybody go buy Goya, eat Goya, giving us all the food we want to feed people, right? And this went on. Homeland Security was there. The Rockland Sheriff's Office was there, and very relatable, because kids are scared of law enforcement. We're your friends. We want to help you. You can come to us, right? We want to change things, right? And it was so wonderful, this 3-hour summit. And the girls all left to see girls like that, 300 girls with smiles on their faces and happy and thankful that they had this event. So again, the Wonder Girls are now in about 20 schools and spreading. So that's where a lot of our monies go. We support groups like the Wonder Girls. We support, the victims, survivors of the trafficking, our education programs. We have a meeting next week. I'll leave that until that's tied up with a big school about getting in there. It's about talking about it. And the kids love when you tell them, you are worth it. We are here for you. I know it sounds very simple. That's what they need to hear. That's the empowerment. And if enough of us say this, we will see success. Let me see. Edie, what did you do here? Edie's a member for 4 months. I hope you do an interview on Wonder Girls. Edie, I've done a few already, but we're going to do a new one because we have such explosive things happening with the Wonder Girls. And we're actually going to be doing a wonderful, not until July though. Oh, a whole big kind of thing here in New York. But July seems like it's far away from now. We got to focus on right now going into February. Teresa says, I help when I can. I'm a member, but she does all the work. Now, Teresa, what does that mean? That means for me, the Wonder Girls? I'm not sure what that means. So clarify that. What a daunting task, according to Fred. Nothing's daunting. When you're passionate, and I'm not, no, it wasn't daunting. When you're passionate and you want to protect children, and there's a good network of adults, because remember, we always hear about the bad, right? The bad. There's so many good people. Let's put the good people out there. Let's put the good girls out there, the good boys out there. Boys, they're forgotten victims, right? Boys, but you'll be hearing more, hopefully a documentary on this, because I want that embarrassment around boys and young men to be lifted. There are so many victims. Yes, it's more girls and women, right? But the boys, forgotten victims. So we're going to be talking more about that. But when I witnessed this on Tuesday, this is something I want all of you to understand. 20 schools, we're creating positive movement. Wonder Girls needs to be across the United States. I believe it will be eventually. Also, you also have to have passionate people. A lot of people, let's be honest here, everybody, right? Because we're all warriors. A lot of people promise things. A lot of people say they want to be involved. A lot of people do a lot of talking and they don't follow through. We don't need them. Then you don't really know what somebody's like till you start working with them. If they show up and then they're no good or they just never come back. Yeah, I don't know what this is. You're either in, you're out, you're passionate, you're not. But let me tell you, we are reclaiming America. We are also empowering our kids. We are also going to keep talking to each other. I urge all of you, I'll be putting out a new newsletter probably Monday morning, because it goes also to not only a lot of individuals, it goes to a lot of businesses, a lot of offices in Washington. And if I put it out tonight, I have to finish a few tweaks on it. It'll sit in their emails over the weekend, and I don't want that. So I want to hit it running on Monday morning. Please go to linswarriors.org and sign up. E-newsletter down on the side. We're going to be talking a lot about AI. We're going to be part of a think tank for AI in Washington, and how we can create guardrails and keep it safe so I can teach you. So I'm honored to be part of that. And also, we're also throwing around, well, I shouldn't jump before in Washington. Right now, human trafficking sits with the HHS office, Health and Human Services. perhaps moving that into the DOJ, right? That there would be more accountability, transparency. So many great things are percolating. I'm telling you, warriors, very positive. Edie says, yeah, it's overwhelming, but just share and keep at it. You just stay in your lane. You keep going, everybody. I channel my life force and my love force energies in your direction. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Fred. I'm going to leave you also with Justine Bateman's doing some terrific tweets about the realities going on in California with the government, with the people, with the citizens. She's out there. Remember her, the actress. I urge all of you to follow her on Twitter and to look at my interview I did with my former colleague and friend, Cece Woods. It's here on the channel. She is an investigative reporter out in LA, and she has got the information. Interestingly enough, she single-handedly in LA a couple of years ago broke a story about a guy named Phil Washington. And Phil Washington was being pushed by the Biden administration to head up the FAA. I can barely say it. He was doing a lot of illegal type things in California. Cece started investigating, called him out. Law enforcement came to her. Feds came to her. This broke wide open. Of course, you didn't hear about it, right? Because we didn't hear about a lot of things in the last 4 years. And all of a sudden, Phil Washington disappeared. There was no, he's not going to be in charge of the FAA anymore. So we've got to follow up on that a little bit. But that guy just disappeared. And I believe he's running now, maybe Denver International. Don't hold me to that. He's running some airport. But she did this. She's a warrior, investigative reporter. Go find her interview. It's very enlightening about the fires, about the government, what's happening there. And also, we've got Dirty Diddy. We have new superseding charges. We have to, the reason I tell you about Diddy and I talk about him extensively on Nancy Grace is because we need to show victims, survivors of all of this exploitation, that there will be accountability. They will be held responsible. So it's not just about the victims of Dirty Diddy, as I like to call him. It's about everybody, because most people do not come forward. I wish people would understand that. They will not. So when people say to me, why didn't they say something? Why didn't they come forward? They want to forget about it. They're scared. Who's going to believe a vulnerable girl, maybe from Brooklyn or the Bronx, who was 15 and willingly, even though a minor can't consent to anything, goes off to a party because some guy says, oh, you want to meet people in the music business? Oh, come on. So-and-so will take you to buy a new dress. You're going to have a great time. You're going to rub elbows. And then they're in situations they can't get out of. It's a mess. So you know what? Let me leave you with a little information. There is also going to be a new piece of legislation about sex trafficking in the music biz. Stay tuned for that one because it is rampant. I'm going to leave it at that for now because we have to work on that one. But that is good news that broke also this week. And I leave you with, I give you some homework. I like to give you some homework. If you do one thing, please watch yesterday's interview with Jen Coffindaffer, my colleague, ex-FBI agent, who is doing terrific work with Break the Case, her podcast. She, I have to tell you, I'm her biggest cheerleader. She never lets a case go with missing kids. We are looking for Sebastian Rogers. This case has been going on where this autistic teen went. You know, the cases will come out. We'll post the picture, right? And then the public or the media goes away. We want to keep up on these missing kids. What happened to them? We know on some level criminality, right? He goes in his house because there are cameras. We saw it and never to be seen again. What happened to this child? So Jen does an excellent job in really keeping up with cases. She always puts the victims at the forefront, seeking justice. So I urge all of you to watch that and share if possible, and not if possible, do it. But also your homework is we can all and must do something. It's 2025, right? We live in a new country. If you use your own platforms, you leverage them for good. So share a warrior's tweet or a Jen Coffindaffer's tweet or a Cece Woods I just told you about, or the interview I did with my friend Brian McLean. You know, We talked about the border. We had border agents on a couple of years ago. Everybody fought us. Everybody told me when I said there were 500,000 plus unaccompanied minors missing. I would just say kids missing, because to me, kids are kids. People said, don't talk about it, Lynn. Don't, don't, don't. My source is my proof, the boots on the ground giving me the information. Never what you hear in mainstream media. Be very careful. There are a lot of great people online. Vet them, seek it out. This is the new, I don't want to say it's the new media because a lot of people have been around for 10 years or so. Be very careful what you do retweet or share on your platforms. But please, one thing I leave you with, everybody, on this Friday, this rainy Friday here in New York, a picture of a missing child. When I tell you that 2,300 American children go missing every day, and people fight me on that, that's the number. Could be 2,500. I don't know. 2,300 runaways, sex trafficked, labor trafficked, family disputes. I don't care if it's one child. When you see a picture on the Warriors, for instance, or anywhere else, any other platform, looking for this child, you have a duty to share that on your platforms because somebody somewhere knows something. And if you think you know, do not be scared. You call 911 immediately. You can also contact cybertipline.org. And don't tell me they don't help you because it's a new America. They will help you. And you file a report. You just say you think, you're not going to be held responsible. And you keep at it. And that's what we need to do. But you know what? The biggest thing you can do is online. Whether you like it or not, the online sleuths, they are finding people, just keeping it up, seeing things online. So honor us with that. I want to thank, let's see, did I get Cord's here? Hello, everyone. Cord, we're finishing up. You may have been here the whole time. Edie, thank you for always all of your excellent following along and reminding everybody, to hit that like button on the way out. Please, everybody, do that. And also to Teresa Skinner, thank you for your donation. Remember, it's a new America. We want to protect all children. Please honor our hashtag, Community Creates Change. Have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe, everybody. And remember, each and every day when you wake up, I want you all to go out and be a warrior. We'll talk again soon. Thanks, everybody.
You got it. You got it.